Thousands of Catholic pilgrims from all over the world gather in St. Peter's Square in the Vatican City to bid farewell to Pope Francis. President Nicolas Maduro welcomed the proposal to create an international entrepreneurship network to strengthen the economic countries attending the Entrepreneurship Congress. And hundreds of people have been injured following a massive explosion and a fire at the Iranian port city of Bandar Abbas, south of capital Tehran. Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Luis Alberto Matos from the teleSUR studios in Caracas, Venezuela. We begin with the news. Stay with us. This Saturday, thousands of Catholic pilgrims from all over the world gather in St. Peter's Square in the Vatican City to bid farewell to Pope Francis. Diplomatic corps and delegations representing more than 165 nations were present at the ceremony, which was also attended by heads of states, governments, and kings. The coffin of Pope Francis has traveled 6 kilometers from St. Peter's Square to the Basilica of Santa Maria la Mayor after a service presided over by Cardinal Giovanni Battista, Dean of the College of Cardinals, who recalled Francis' most committed moments for peace, poverty, and human dignity.
With his characteristic vocabulary and language, rich in images and metaphors, he always sought to shed light on the problems of our times with the wisdom of the gospel. He did so by offering a response guided by the light of faith and encouraging us to live as Christians amid the challenges and contradictions in recent years, which he loved to describe as an epochal change.
Cardinal Giovanni Battista took the opportunity during the ceremony to recall the human qualities of Pope Francis and how he worked to create a more just and inclusive church.
He had a great spontaneity and an informal way of addressing everyone, even those far from the church. Rich in human warmth and deeply sensitive to today's challenges, Pope Francis truly shared the anxieties, sufferings, and hopes of this time of globalization. He gave of himself by comforting and encouraging us with a message capable of reaching people's hearts in a direct and immediate way.
And following the funeral mass, a procession accompanied Pope Francis' coffin from St. Peter's Square through downtown Rome to his final resting place in Santa Maria Maggiore Basilica. The Pope himself had chosen this Marian shrine outside the Vatican as his burial place, as it was one of his favorite spots where he used to pray before and after his trips. Along the way, people stepped outside their houses to applaud and greet the Pope's last journey to the Papal Basilica. Meanwhile, in Argentina, citizens prepare for what will be the mobilization in honor of Pope Francis from Buenos Aires. Catholic parishioners affirm that they have ready the agenda of activities and a mass to be held in the Metropolitan Cathedral of the Argentine capital. The religious ceremony in memory of the first Latin American Pope will be conducted by the Archbishop of Buenos Aires and will serve to unite a good part of citizens. Afterwards, a caravan is expected to take place around Plaza de Mayo, and thousands of pilgrims are expected to participate. In Bolivia, certainty that general elections will be held in August returned with the reiterated guarantee of the Supreme Electoral Court that the elections will be held and the commitment of the Constitutional Court that it will not interfere in the process as it did in the past judicial elections. Our correspondent Freddy Morales with the details.
A sort of rumor campaign by the political opposition about an alleged plan to postpone the August national elections led the Supreme Electoral Tribunal to repeat its commitment that the elections will be held on the scheduled date.
en la fecha prevista.
The Supreme Electoral Court has affirmed time and again that the general elections scheduled for this administration will be held on August 17th of this year.
El rumor se basaba en lo ocurrido en las
The rumor was based on what happened in last year's judicial elections when the elections were torpedoed by the Constitutional Court, which not only postponed them, but also, in the face of several lawsuits, authorized them to be held partially.
que se realicen de forma parcial.
Los magistrados del Tribunal Constitucional damos nuestra fe.
We, the magistrates of the Constitutional Court, give our faith, we give our commitment, and we give certainty to the Bolivian people for the realization of this electoral process.
De este proceso electoral para el cumplimiento de este calendario electoral y para
for the fulfillment of this electoral process, and to process the appeals with celerity, and without the processing of these appeals meaning the postponement or slowing down of the election of August 17th of this year.
La elección del 17 de agosto de este año.
La analista Susana Bejarano calificó.
Analyst Susano Bejarano described as shameful that a state power such as the Electoral Tribunal asks the judiciary not to interfere, but the commitments of both give back certainty.
De ambos devuelven certeza.
Existe ya instalado en la sociedad.
There is already a common sense in society that the elections are going to be held, and if they were not held, it would be like lighting the fuse to a gunpowder that is already spread in the country.
Como, digamos, prender la mecha a una pólvora que ya está extendida en el país, porque como tú sabes...
Because as you know, the fact that there's been a lack of fuel, the inflation we are experiencing after 2 decades, and all these situations have generated, whether you like it or not, a tension in the population.
Quieras o no, una crispación, por supuesto, en la población.
Y recordó que son los propios sectores.
It is the opposition sectors themselves who spread rumors about an alleged attempt by the government to extend the deadline for the elections, who encourage uncertainty by filing lawsuits before the judiciary that could affect the date of the elections.
La fecha de las elecciones.
Si tú haces una revisión de quiénes son las personas,
if you make a review of who are the people in the framework of those 5 rulings that have put that question, you're going to see elections, they are going to be suspended because now there are some rulings. 4 of them are people who belong to the opposition bloc, to the anti-movement for socialism bloc. Although they are dressed as indigenous people, they have been systematically against the movement for socialism.
Se vistan de indígenas, han estado sistemáticamente en contra del MAS.
Las elecciones nacionales están convocadas oficialmente para el 17 de agosto próximo.
The national elections have been officially called for next August 17th. The electoral calendar is already smooth and determines that whoever wins these elections will take office at the beginning of November of this year. The registration of candidates will take place in mid-May.
Freddy Morales, TeleSUR, Bolivia.
We now have our first break coming up. Remember, you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and much more. We're going to be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. The President of Venezuela, Nicolas Maduro, welcomed the proposal to create an international entrepreneurship network to strengthen the economy of the more than 50 countries attending the Entrepreneurship Congress. During the closing ceremony of the Congress that gathered representatives from 57 countries in the city of Caracas, the Venezuelan head of state greeted this first meeting of economic diversity as a well-timed initiative. The Venezuelan president explained that entrepreneurship emerged as one of the 13 economic engines promoted by the national government, thanks to the work and productive conscience of the Venezuelan people. In this sense, President Maduro specified that the new diversified economic model was consolidated as a strategy to confront the economic aggressions imposed by the government of the United States against the people of Venezuela.
Porque conociendo nuestra experiencia y conociendo la experiencia de ustedes.
Because knowing our experience and knowing your experience, we can integrate great ideas and great strengths. That is why I think it is very good that in this first international meeting, an international network of entrepreneurship is born at the level of all our countries and all our economies. And these 57 countries that are participating here want this international network of entrepreneurs. I am in favor. I think it is very good that they have taken this decision, and I applaud and support it.
Y la aplaudo y la acompaño.
And the rainy season is starting in Venezuela and is expected to last until November to prevent risks and react more efficiently in case of an alert. The Bolivarian government launched this week a special plan to protect the population. A correspondent, Chada Fall, accompanied the activation in the capital district.
A los lados de la carretera panamericana, en la salida de
On the
Caracas,
sides of the Pan American Highway, on the southbound exit from Caracas, the mountainous landscape is dotted with houses that have often been built by the inhabitants themselves. In the rainy season, these precarious constructions on unsuitable land endanger entire neighborhoods.
Most of our population is afraid of the rain because we are in lands that are shifting, that are not stable. And that is why it is the fear of all the inhabitants.
It is precisely this area that has been chosen to initiate the implementation of the Capital District's 2025 rainfall plan. During his inspection of the area, together with state security forces and community representatives, the head of government insisted on the need to work together to identify risks and provide efficient solutions.
There will be a significant deployment in terms of reviewing the condition of the territory, the condition of the land, the movement of the earth, and of course the survey of the various works that we must do to mitigate risk.
This initiative is part of the call made earlier this week by President Nicolas Maduro, who warned about the torrential rains expected for this year and the need to react with a special plan at the national level.
Heavy rains are announced for this year because the weather is warmer. This is climate change, so we have to prepare ourselves. Prepare the cities, prepare all the towns, prepare the machinery, prepare the preventive measures, and prepare the capacity of action to replace roads, access roads, houses, and everything that needs to be replaced. And to protect life, which is the most important thing.
The National Institute of Meteorology and Hydrology, for its part, said it is monitoring any change in the atmospheric conditions and assured that it will keep the population informed through its social networks, also counting on the collaboration of citizens in this task.
It is important because we bring awareness of climate change to the communities, and in turn empowerment through the management of products and weather stations to clarify these effects that can cause extreme precipitation.
During the week, heavy rains have lashed the states of Trujillo and Barinas. At a time of global climate crisis, Venezuela faces the challenge of articulating a joint effort to adapt as a society to a new reality.
Chada Fall, desde Caracas, Venezuela, para teleSUR.
And in the Dominican Republic, various activities are being carried out throughout the week to commemorate the Revolution of April 1965. What it's all about? Our correspondent, our colleague Daisy Toussaint, tells us the details.
60 years after the April Revolution, the Dominican people remember one of the most transcendent chapters of its 20th century history. The civil-military struggle that sought to re-establish the legitimate government of Juan Bosch.
It
was an event of extraordinary gravity, because now it seems to be a historical fact. It happened a long time ago, but because of our age, we had a certain informative curiosity of that moment. In the year 65, it can be said that what was happening here in Santo Domingo was known in all of Latin America, even the conservative press. I am talking about my country, Argentina, did not stop reporting every day the development of that event, which was very strange because it was a kind of unification of the contested social forces of the great popular depth together with all kinds of military.
On April 24, 1965, thousands of Dominicans took to the streets to demand a return to constitutionality after the coup d'etat that overthrew Juan Bosch in 1963, following his proposals for social reforms that made conservative sectors uncomfortable. The Dominican Revolution surprised the continent in an era marked by military coups. The particularity was the union of civilians and the military in defense of democracy.
un 24 de abril de 1965.
On April 24th, 1965, the Dominican people took to the streets to reestablish the legal and legitimate government that had been overthrown 2 years earlier.
Que había sido derrocado 2 años atrás.
Hoy diversas actividades recuerdan esa gesta heroica.
Today, various activities recall that heroic deed. From photographic exhibitions in Independence Park to lectures, such as the one given by Argentine political scientist Attilio Boron, who also draws some parallels with the U.S. invasions of that time and today's interference.
Mira, lo que pasa es que hoy la injerencia norteamericana está mucho más extendida, diversificada.
Look, what is happening today is that U.S. interference is much more widespread and diversified than before. Before it was an interference that I would dare to say was fundamentally military, political, diplomatic. But today the interference that they have managed to have, for example,
a través del control del sistema de medios de comunicación, que prácticamente cuando tú miras, sobre todo la prensa y la televisión, está en manos de...
through the control of the media system that practically when you look at it, especially the press and television is in the hands of the United States through front men, through allies, through people who sell out, who change their minds. But then today it is much more dangerous. Besides, today there is an empire that is in a phase of decline and therefore it is much more virulent, much more aggressive.
Y por lo tanto se pone mucho más virulento, mucho más agresivo.
A 6 décadas, los ideales de aquel abril siguen...
6 decades later, the ideals of that April continue to resonate as a call for the defense of democracy and fundamental rights.
On the 60th anniversary of the April Revolution, the transcendence is that it is an occasion to reflect on what democracy means and what the struggle of the Dominican people to restore the overthrown government of Juan Bosch in 1963 meant, and also to retake the constitution of that year.
La Revolución de Abril no es solo historia,
The April Revolution is not only history. It is the present and the commitment of a people that continues to fight for its dignity.
Para teleSUR de Institución República Dominicana.
Now I have a second short break coming up before we invite you to visit our Facebook page at teleSUR English. There you'll be able to watch our top stories, special live coverage, and much more. Follow our page and activate the notification button to stay up to date on the world's most recent events. Final break, we're going to be right back. Welcome back. Hundreds of people have been injured following a massive explosion and a fire at the Iranian port city of Bandar Abbas, south of capital Tehran. Iran's customs authorities said in a statement on Saturday that the explosion occurred in the Sina container yard, which is affiliated with the country's ports and maritime organization. State media are reporting that the number of injuries has risen to 406, while Iranian state television said initial reports indicate negligence in the storage of flammable materials at the site. In this context, the National Iranian Petroleum Refining and Distribution Company issued a statement following the blast, saying oil facilities in the area were not affected by the blast. At least 16 people were killed in Palestine on the 40th day since Israel resumed its genocide against the Gaza Strip. Health authorities in Gaza report that since October 7, 2023, the number of people killed has risen to 51,495 and that 117,524 people have been wounded. Also, 10,000 people are missing or presumed dead on the rubble, whereas survivors still search for the remains of their loved ones. Meanwhile, several United Nations agencies have announced the total blockade imposed by Israel to the entry of food and other essential supplies since March 2nd this year, which aggravates the humanitarian crisis in the region. And Cuba joined the worldwide call for solidarity with Gaza, where participants demanded an end to the Zionist occupation, full recognition of the Palestinian state, and the return of refugees from Israeli genocide. Young Palestinians and Cubans, together with representatives of civil society organizations, supported Cuba's demand for the cessation of the Israeli genocide against the population of the Gaza Strip. They also rejected the complicity of the U.S. government in the massacre that has claimed the lives of at least 51,350 Palestinians and injured more than 117,000 civilians in flagrant violation of the ceasefire agreements. In this sense, they denounced the terrorist regime of Israel for the use of extermination policies and expulsion of the civilian population.
The struggle for life, the struggle for culture, the struggle for the sovereignty of Palestine is our struggle, as it is Venezuela, as are other peoples. We are in the same space of resistance.
Today
we are denouncing a genocide. We have been denouncing an imperialism that is a fundamental part of the conflict. We have been asking for the freedom of the Palestinian people. We have been asking for the rights that the Palestinian people deserve, to solidarity, and to continue in combat always until victory.
On April 25th, Casa de las Americas Literature Prize was awarded in Havana, Cuba, in the categories of short stories, poetry, and Latin studies in the United States. In the category of poetry, the prize was awarded to Cuerpo Quebrado Lumbre by Venezuelan Esmeralda Torres because it is a book constant and deep in stone, in which the poetic character of a boat woman undertakes a sort of inner expedition from the descent into the sea to the sea. In the category of short stories, the prize was awarded to The Woman Who Hated Cats by Cuban Edelmis Anoceto Vega because the volume reveals with originality and narrative complexity the true and astonishing nature of everyday. Lastly, the category of Latin studies in the United States was awarded to Tell Me If They Are Latinx, Writings of the Ecuadorian Diaspora in the U.S. by Ecuadorian Cristina Burneo Salazar.
The Casa de las Americas Award, to have it for any writer is an important achievement, not only for Cubans, but for all Latin Americans. More than time, it has a lot of history. A very nice history, especially for the number of artists and intellectuals and writers who have been close to the prize. For me, it is one of the most important moments of my literary career and of my life, because of course literature is my life.
Honor is a word that is too small for the overflowing sensation I have when I am here. The workshop was a super nourishing space of exchange for me, to rethink many things related to dramaturgy, to Latin American dramaturgy, to poetry, to politics, and to the theatrical work in a broad sense, and also to the encounter between people who produce cultural sense, who are dedicated to art.
Like this, we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. So join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For telesur English, I'm Luis Alberto Matos. Thank you for watching.